So now I want to go to a major uh, survey that was done by a center out of Australia that was brought into Dallas uh, decades ago to an annual uh, conference for International Dietary Supplement Company that was also sharing this information down in Australia, and they were interested in it. So with this, we will go to what we hope will be a shorter presentation to leave time for questions and answers so we can find out what's on your mind and what do you want to know. So with this, we will start with the first slide. Now, this research team was brought into Dallas by plane, and we will go to the second slide. Here it is. This was the Australian Center for Complementary Medicine. Now, orthodox medicine likes to use the term alternative medicine, but most of the people involved in natural products like the term complementary because we are not trying to cause competition or conflict. What we want to do is to integrate, for example, standard conventional medicine with more comprehensive nutrition that supports engineering and design of life that is coded in the genes, which we've spoken of before. So what I'm sharing with you is a conference in Dallas, Texas in the year 2004, and a significant report was made by the Complementary Center, and there were over 6,000 people that had come from multiple states and even countries to this conference in Dallas. And 2,737 responded to the survey. 36% or 950 were males, and they averaged 53.2 years of age, and 63.9 or nearly 64% or 1,683 females, average age of 51.3 years. And right quick, you can see that in direct marketing, the overwhelming number are females, and oftentimes the husband or partner supports the females, which for one thing, this is a vocal one-to-one type of marketing or sharing of what more comprehensive nutrition can do. And in my experience, females are more verbal and more articulate at talking than males who sit back. Now, 99.1% of these people, or nearly 100%, took formulations of more dietary comprehensive nutrition that was built around the active ingredient from the aloe vera plant called Acemannan, which is acetylated mannose, a special saccharide or sugar that it was in the research of Carrington Laboratories, and we were trying to make a drug out of it. In the FDA new drug testing, we got thrown out. I was a consultant to it because, number one, no toxicity could be shown regardless of how much or how long you gave it. And that is pharmaceutical medical heresy. The founder, called father of pharmacology, Western pharmacology, was Paracelsus, most noted person from Switzerland. His most famous statement was, all drugs are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose. And to have a lot of benefits from the active ingredient from aloe, but no toxicity, was pharmaceutical and medical heresy. The second problem was real significant is it didn't matter what the deviation from normal health was, whether it was physical, mental, or emotional. By adding this to the diet, the individual reported improvement. For example, if you're so depressed that you wake up every day, you're a citizen of the United States, and say, life isn't worth living, I'm going to end it. That is not normal activity. This population is one of the blessed in the world, and to not be able to recognize all the good things in life and want to end it is not normal. And this active ingredient from the aloe supports normal biochemistry, even that of the brain, and normal physiology. Now, 96% of the people had taken dietary supplements for over 1 month. And in fact, the average of this group, of this 2,700, nearly 3,000 survey respondents, they'd been taking supplements for an average of almost 3 years. So that's a pretty good exposure. That 11% reported that the cost of a dietary supplement influence their level of consumption. In other words, some would take more and they would anticipate more benefits, but dietary supplements, just like any food, are not free. And so cost is something to be considered. Nearly 54% or 53.6 indicated that they had not taken any days off from their job for health reasons in the previous year. That is significant benefit in general terms. In fact, nearly 43% said they had had no need to see a physician in the last year, and only 25% had had one visit. Now, this is the cover of the report that I'm going to go into, because I think we will get into what happens in the foxholes and creaches of everyday life and the challenges in our society and in our environment to our health. And we have the credentials there of the advanced degree professors that had put this together and came to Dallas to do this. And again, it was in September of 2004. And this is the cover of the report. Now, what were the initial complaints listed by the people? Well, 58% said they had joint pain. 83.4% said they had respiratory infections. 67%, remember there was a predominance of females, said they had postmenopausal syndrome symptoms. They were older, did you notice, and in their age group, and 76% had urinary tract infections. That's the reason they had taken the dietary supplements. But very important is that 95% claimed they had chronic fatigue syndrome, which in the United States is primarily called fibromyalgia, which is aches in the joints and muscles and just worn out, no energy. In England, this is called neurasthenia. They emphasize the discomfort in the joints and the nervous system in this. And included in this were individuals that had viral hepatitis B or C, because that is a very common thing if you've got hepatitis, is to have chronic worn out feeling and have abnormal liver tests, which are the enzymes are elevated, or either they had respiratory symptoms. Now, they really go into analyzing this population, because this is not a double-blind, placebo, random assigned, formal, multi-million-dollar investigation of deviations from health. And they ask these people about their alcohol intake, the amount per day, and the years they've been drinking. They investigated. These are cofactors that challenge good health. Do you smoke cigarettes? The number today in the years you've been smoking. They ask if you had certain treatments or other natural supplements, and the time and length that the supplement intakes in the mouths. The factors that prevented them from taking maybe all the supplements they wanted to as often as they wanted to. They registered the ethnicity and race because we had found out with the informal numbers, huge numbers, that Oriental gene pool and the Native American population, sometimes called Native American Indians, that goes right on down into Mexico. The initial Native individuals in Mexico, not the Spanish or the Portuguese or the English or the French that came in, but the original, that those groups, ethnic groups, seem to respond to natural dietary supplements better than the mixed gene pool of Europeans. Very important is they investigated about the exercise habits. And I like to point this out that Hippocrates, who's credited being the father of Western medicine, left a statement to the fact that if we could provide to the individual with proper nutrition and exercise, comma, not too much, not too little, comma, we would have found the safest pathway to good health. And I frequently say that grandmothers and mothers, with their empiric observations, have long said, if you want to be healthy, eat different colors of fruits and vegetables. Well, that's saying that we require a broad supply of nutrient molecules to be healthy. In addition, grandmothers and mothers of observers said that if you don't use it, you lose it. So exercise and nutrition, from practical terms, have been recognized for a long time. Now, they also, everyone has a different diet, just like everyone has a different set of genes, though there are certain ethnicities that tend to have more of the same types of genes and the same types of diet. But they checked for 58 items that, did you have these, they asked them, in the last month, trying to get a grasp of how broad the diet is of the people in this survey. Now, here's some characteristics of the survey. As we said, there's 950 males, the average of 53.2 average years, and 1683 females. Remember that postmenopausal syndrome was a common complaint of these people. And this is the distribution by age of these survey respondents and what kind of problems they had. The height of the bar graphs is the incidence of complaints or deviations from normal that they hope dietary supplements would help. Here's some more characteristics of the survey respondents, nearly 3,000 people. They had, as we said, 55 items that they were asked, did you have this in the last month in your diet? And you can see on that first graph on the left that around 30 was the peak of this population, and very few people were up to above 50, and very few were way down into the only 5 or 10 out of the 50 items that they'd had in their diet. So this is a characteristic of the diet of this group of people. The graph to the right is the frequencies of the different ages of exercise that they had done. If you'll notice, those that were doing exercise right now is the highest column, and that those that have been doing it for 1 to 5 months comes next, and those that have been exercising for 4 to 5 years are much less. So we tend to get hot and bothered about the importance of nutrition, but with time we exercise less, and this is pretty typical of normal population. Here's some more characteristics of these nearly 3,000 respondents. You can notice in table 31 the types of exercise that is done regularly. We have jogging, which is about 91.4%. Then walking, we have, yes, when I said 94%, that was not how many were jogging, but how many were not jogging. Only about 9% actually were jogging. But walking is a very high percentage of that are not, but 54% actually stated that they went on walks to increase their exercise amount. Those that swam was only 5.5%. Those riding the bicycle, about 8%. Those doing aerobic exercises, about 10%. Lifting weights in the gym, now that was a surprise, about 20.4%. There's a very small amount doing yoga, and you may not be familiar with the Pilates exercise devices, but that is somewhat expensive compared to other things, and only 5% were using Pilates with their springs and other resistance. And other exercises, only 13.6. Now, table 32 is about smoking. And you can see that those that had never smoked of males was about 60%. And the females that had never smoked was nearly 70%, 68.4%. Then we get into those that smoked in the past, but they've quit, and that was about a third. And there were more males that quit smoking than females. And so you can see only about 5% of males actually still smoked, and only about 4% of the females. So there's very particularly a healthy and aware group, because one of the most common deleterious things that human beings can do that aren't essential is to burn trash and suck it into your lungs. Most people realize this isn't healthy, and we have a fairly healthy group here that recognize the deleterious effect of smoking tobacco. And down here was the frequency and distribution of the number of cigarettes smoked daily and the number of years in this survey they did this. And you can notice there that 16 to 20 number of cigarettes a day seemed to be kind of a peak for this group. Very few more than 40 a day, and very low amount that smoke only 1 to 5 cigarettes a day, because nicotine is addicting, and people begin to get the shakes and feel irritated and feel like they've got to have that nicotine to feel comfort. But fortunately, this is not typical in this group. Now, these are complaints of deviations from normal health. They're listed by incidence and the percent improvement on the survey. And if you notice the top line, we have no experience with the symptoms at the left, moderately effective, extremely effective, and the number effective and the percent effective. And notice how high the percent effective is. And this is one of the amazing things for me as a medical doctor in my training of how effective more comprehensive nutrition as available through dietary supplementation can feel. And of course, you can just have this group of, there were 1,943 that just weren't feeling well. And the 97.8% were improved and extremely effective with 38.4%. Now, the second was attention deficit hyperactive disorder. This is common in children, but it goes up into adults too. And it was extremely effective in 40%, and number of 1,044 out of 1954 complaining of this problem, and again a 97.8% effective. Learning disorders all punched together. It was extremely effective, over a third. And we go on down to chronic pain, muscle soreness, muscle fatigue, upper respiratory infections, just plain fatigue. And you can notice extremely effective at 46.3% just for fatigue. Now, in these symptoms, I want to stress that these are not medical diagnostic terms that are used by insurance companies or Medicare or Medicaid or government health things. These are symptoms, biomarkers, and it's legal for the lay term of I've got chronic pain or I've got muscle soreness, but if you use a diagnostic term that's called a CPT code, dietary supplements cannot, by law, claim to improve or help a disease, a syndrome, or correct an abnormal health diagnosis. But just symptoms or biomarkers is just what you talk about, like you talk about, I have a depressed feeling, or I have a headache. There are many reasons you can have headaches that are diagnostic. It can just be from tension or lack of sleep or something you ate, or it can be a brain tumor or an infection, which would be getting into diagnostic terms where you go into the clinic or hospital or x-rays or lab diagnosis to determine what kind of headache caused. We shall going down to the last one there, recurrent anxiety. And I put a red line under those things that are not physical illness, ADD, ADHD, learning disorders, depressed feelings, headaches, premenstrual syndrome, and recurrent anxiety are in the area of emotional or mental feelings that people complain of, that it's important that you don't have to have a broken bone or infection to get a benefit. These are things that not in the physical domain. Now, again, these are biomarkers, which are legal terms that you can use in communication. And we got the symptoms on the left-hand column, and the two columns here on the left have mouth ulcers is very significant benefit there. In fact, is a paper was published by Baylor Dental School on the benefits to mouth ulcers of the autoimmune type. We go on down to chronic sore throat, chronic stress, heartburn, indigestion, hot flashes, constipation, diarrhea, muscle twitches, chronic sneezing, and then on to the right-hand time, we have things like dizziness, discomfort in the neck, uncomfortable urination. If you were to say bacterial infection and the type of bacteria, that would be a disease or diagnostic term not to be used because it is against the law, specifically stated that only an FDA-approved drug can be used to treat or cure a diagnostic deviation from normal, a disease, syndrome, or abnormal health condition. What we do with more comprehensive nutrition is support normal biochemistry, support normal physiology. And fortunately, that's what the genes are programs, just like a very powerful program, much more powerful than that that's in a computer or in a cell phone. And again, we have symptoms like dry, itchy eyes there, visual disturbance. You can say difficulty passing urine, but if you get too much into that, you start getting into diseases. We got down there ringing of the ears, and the last one, more bowel gas passage. These are terms in how they high instance of improvement in this last column here by more comprehensive nutrition. Now, this is an example of terms that cannot be used not only in the United States, but in Europe, and in fact, virtually all the Commonwealth countries that were part of the British Empire that are now independent nations. There's a commonality of definitions and rules for regulation of drugs and dietary supplements that's very similar to all of these patients. But here in this survey, I've underlined that there were out of 2,422, nearly 15% had had a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, or 348, and they said that their Parkinson's disease was cured by 39.1%, and that significantly better, 43%, mildly better, 11.8%, no change, only 5.2%, and very few were mildly worse. In other words, it got no benefit. Now, heart failure, you can't use that. That's a diagnostic term. And for what you do, you ask the patient, can you lay flat in bed at night, or do you start feeling like you can't breathe and suffocated? Do you have to have pillows under your upper chest and head to elevate your head above the rest of your body? You can also ask, do you have swelling of your ankles, particularly as the day goes on and that it goes down at night? But those are symptoms or signs you can complain about in everyday language. But heart failure is determined by echocardiography, that the strength of the ejection of the left ventricle is reduced. But the most important thing there is there were 286 that said they had had heart failure, that 17.5 said they don't have it anymore, that they were significantly better, 27.6%, mildly better, 28.3%, only 25% no change. The reason I say this is because Parkinson's disease and heart failure are very common things in our aging population. Then we go down there to diabetes type 2, and you can't be talking about diabetes. You can talk about deviation from normal for blood glucose, management, but you can't use the diagnostic term type 2 diabetes. And that's where there is a real significant benefit with more comprehensive nutrition, because 18.3% said that they no longer had any evidence of that deviation from normal. They were nearly 50%, 49.2% were better, and mildly better, 21.5%, and only about 11% was there no change. Over on the right-hand side, you get an area where it's fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. And the reason I have the brackets there is that was kind of a entry condition people complained of in 1994 when the Dietary Supplement Act came into benefit, and people would take more comprehensive nutrition for the fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. And then there are other problems, like as we saw on the left over here, their Parkinson's disease, their heart failure, their glucose management improved, much to their pleasure. And of course, the correction of the discomfort and pain from fibromyalgia was about 48.9%. That was significantly better, slightly better, 11%, mildly better, 4%. So that was our entry problems. And you can see other disorders there, how many complained of this, like psoriasis, skin autoimmune disease. Only 96 people, or 4.2%. And you can see the about a third of them got a benefit, a little over a third. And this is the type of information we got on this survey. Now, one thing I want to point out is the information on the survey is not new insight or knowledge. In our introduction, we pointed out in the Hebrew scriptures that in Ezekiel 47:12, it ends with that the leaves of the tree shall be for medication or drugs, depending on the translation. That'd be from about 5000 BC. That in the New Testament, Revelation 22:2, it ends with the leaves of the tree shall be for the healing of the nations. Then I gave you a quote from Hippocrates in ancient Greece before our calendar even started. And Paracelsus in the Dark Ages said all man needs for health and healing has been provided by God in nature. The challenge of medicine and science is to find it. Well, in the United States, a dentist by the name of Dr. Royal Lee, very active from about 1940 to 1960, went all over North America trying to tell everybody what I've been telling you, the benefits of more comprehensive nutrition. And he was rated by the FDA, and the director of the FDA is quoted. You can find it on the computer search, that Dr. Royal Lee was considered one of the worst sources of information because he questioned the use of drugs and the benefits of more comprehensive nutrition. Now, here in Texas, Dr. Roger J. Williams, a PhD biochemist, born in 1893, died in 1988, was for 40 years at the University of Texas, trying to share people with the information I've been sharing with you in this survey about the type of benefits people can get. So this has been recognized since the beginning of history. I want you to know that in scientific journals and medical journals, there are published clinical studies that validate this ancient knowledge and insight, documenting the power of value of more comprehensive nutrition. Why can't this be circulated? Because it's federal law in the Dietary Supplement uh, or the SHEA Act in the labeling section that only an FDA approved drug can treat, cure, or mitigate or improve an abnormal health conditions. However, the genes provide instructions for cellular synthesis of how you use nutrient molecules to assemble bioactive compounds that conduct the normal biochemistry and normal physiology of life. And the genes are programs much like thermostat on the wall for comfort, except the genes are programs for balance in the metabolic symptoms. And this balance area was called by the father of human physiology, Dr. Hans Selye, as homeostasis. And the genes are programs for all organ systems to be in homeostasis or balance. This is the normal zone, and that's what nutrition